Last week we got to take a dive in life in Atlin, meet some of the locals, and something that I really love about traveling the way that I do, not necessarily as a tourist, but pursuing these stories, is I'm told about a lot of the local secrets, where you can get good drinking water right out of a spring, where to go exploring. This week we're heading out in search of a little bit of history and a beautiful trip on Atlin Lake. Today's first location comes as a recommendation from a fan and supporter of Destination Adventure. Mr. Daly, thanks for the hot lead. I'm happy to see it comes with some single track adventure through the forest. There's a cabin there. We should check it on the way out. Remember this exact spot. Go ahead and tell you what we're looking for today, because it's awfully strange it's up here, but there's a sluice dredge up here. I don't know how or why it's all the way up on top of this hill, but it's here. Let's go check it out. The dredge is that direction, but from where I parked I can already see something over here. Not much else. So if you're not familiar, a dredge is a pretty interesting old piece of mining equipment, because it mines and sluices its way through the forest. Independently, it digs a big trough in front of it, and it is sitting in water, and then it sluices the material through and leaves workings behind it that look like this. So these might be some dredge tailings that we're working on right now. What makes this location interesting is that I don't know where the dredge would be floating. Usually there's a pond, could be man-made, but as you can see, we're up on top of a hill. Just climbed up here. Well, there you have a big chunk of something. To me, this does not look like a dredge. Looks like a processing plant of some kind, but it's so deteriorated, can't really tell. Look at this huge piece of wood. One single piece. And it's still very rotten, so I don't want to walk across it. Just don't want to wreck anything. And I can see some more over there, but I don't see where a dredge could be floating here. So I think this is just for redirecting water. I don't know, I thought this was maybe part of a wash plant here because of this mesh. But you can see two pipes going out of there, and then we have what looks to be possibly a waterway coming in on either side. So maybe, can't imagine a dredge would be down there. Maybe I'm gonna find one up here. Aha! I have spied a dredge in all its glory. And like most dredges, there's very little left of this thing because it's been sitting out here in the forest for probably the better part of 100 years. But here's a basic look at it. This is actually a large boat that you can see, and then this cable would have lifted that arm that you can see over there. Then there would have been a whole ring of buckets going around. Actually, they would have been going this way. And they dig a trench, and this thing would move forwards, floating on the water, processing material as it moved along. You can see right here is the pivot point. That's where it would articulate back and forth, all on cable. This is actually a little bit different than dredges I've seen in the past. The only ones I've seen in person have had a ring of buckets all the way, and they just rotate. This looks more like it had one bucket, and then maybe the bucket would come over, dump, and then the material would fall down a trough. Not entirely sure, but look at that thing.
Built by the...
Oh! Built by the Fairbanks something. Can't quite make that out. I can't believe that paint is still on there. That's really cool. Ancient engineering. And it's pretty impressive to think that this boat, most likely powered by steam, had enough energy to fill this with dirt, dig it through the earth, through the rocks and the dirt, lift it all the way up, dump it down, sluice it out, get the gold out. Pretty freaking cool. Just want to get a closer look at these gears. Oh, looks like they've been welded or filled with material a lot of times throughout their usage. Just crazy to see what people accomplished back in the day, before the times of heavy regulation and certification. Just come out here, mill up a bunch of lumber, build a friggin' dredge, and start sluicing. Can't quite see what that would have said, but this whole boom had something down it all the way. This is the underside of the boom, and I had expected the paint would have been more preserved under here. But for whatever reason, on the top, it is more preserved, so I still can't quite make out the whole inscription under here. I figured it out. It says, made by Fairbanks Shovel Company, Marion. Marion something. Made by Fairbanks Shovel Company, Marion O something. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna do a little more walking around in the woods, make sure I'm not missing anything, but just noticed something before we head out of here. This bucket, I'm assuming it's just mild steel, but these are such a different color. If anybody knows if that's just the difference between mild and hardened steel, or if that's some type of alloy. If you know, let me know. I'm gonna go for a brief walk up the flume, see if we can stumble across anything. Directly back here is the dam. And it looks like downstream from the dam is wood. Why they put that effort in, I'm not sure. Maybe so it just didn't erode things underneath. But going up from here seems to be just rock. Pretty incredible what people accomplished back in the day. Oh. Did you see that squirrel? Scared the crap out of you. That was hilarious. This whole trench would have been dug by hand. And who knows where it goes, but it goes up to a water source somewhere. There's not really any big scale mining happening in Atlin anymore, but there is some small scale or medium scale placer mines. I'm guessing that's where this road goes because there is fresh tracks on it. And you can hear some diesel equipment running down here, and I can see someone's got a placer mine down there. And since they're running, we're not going to go much further. But it's a beautiful place for a walk. Nice little bit of history. One more little point of interest. Beneath me is a square board with holes in it, which would have held wire for either power or a telegraph line. Two of them here. Back at the rig, which concludes stop number 1. I'm really looking forward to our next adventure. We've been waiting and waiting for some weather where we can get out on the lake. Atlin Lake being as large as it is, and with some large glaciers up in the mountains around it, the weather, like the wind, can be quite bad. So tomorrow's looking pretty good until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Should be great. We passed a cabin on the way in. Haven't seen it yet, although it's around here somewhere. But I spied, I think, a section of wooden flume back here in the woods that's still completely intact. Oh, interesting. Not sure why they would have started piping it from here. Needed pressure for something. This is what I could see from the road. Just this section laying down on the forest floor. Funny enough, we only had to drive another maybe 50 feet to find this cabin. I'm guessing it's related to that pressure house, if we want to call it that. Maybe somebody stayed down here to regulate that thing. Cute little cabin though. Definitely a cabin for one. Makes the rig look like a friggin' mansion. There's the little cabin. If you come over here, you can look at basically every single log stump left behind from the logs they used to build the cabin. Atlin has the jankiest little sani dump I've ever seen, and on the way to the sani dump is a sign similar to the one going to the dredge that says powerhouse. We're heading down to see what's down here. I'm guessing it's a historic powerhouse. The road has not been traveled in quite some time with anything other than maybe a dirt bike or a quad.
So small.
I cannot believe, of all the recommendations we got from around town, nobody told us about this powerhouse. Pretty flippin' rad.
Wow.
I mean, I'll be honest, it's not the most easily accessible place. Not the kind of road you want to take your average dually or vehicle that you don't want a ton of scratches on. But I built the rig for going down roads like that. Oh, this old building's in good shape, actually. Well, somebody's come and taken all the copper out of here, which is usually the first thing that happens from these old powerhouses. But this was a copper winding at some point in time. See another one hanging up there. I think this is for cooling. Keep everything nice and cool. And there's a sign over here that says caretaker's cabin. We'll go take a look at the cabina. Looking pretty rough. Like how you can still see some of that tin on the roof back there. Surprise, for something as important to a city as a powerhouse, you'd think the caretaker's house would be a little fancier. Didn't even peel the bark off the logs. Didn't even flatten the logs. Place must have been a friggin' freezer in the wintertime. Oh, they did chink it at least. With clay, maybe? Well, kind of just a silly little side trip that turned into a really cool stop. But there's the powerhouse and the caretaker's cabin. As we're walking back, I've been thinking, when we were coming back from the dredge, there was that large piping and the pressure house, as we called it. I'm curious if that is part of the penstock that used to come down. There's a little box here. Part of the penstock that used to come down and run the powerhouse. Looks like about the same size. I'm not sure what else they would have used that for. Today is chores day in town, so we have laundry sitting in the dryer now. We didn't really schedule a stop for this. But what a beautiful place to stumble across. Well, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is we did get to go out for our trip on Atlin Lake, and it was exceptional. So much so that it actually needed its own episode. So the bad news is you don't get to see it until next weekend. I do apologize for the shorter episode this week, but more than anything, I thank you for tuning into another episode of Destination Adventure. As always, take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints, and I'll catch you on the next one.